Hi, what's up there, YouTube? So this morning, I get up and I get on the computer like usual. You guys know that. You know my routine. Coffee out of the Rand cup. And this morning, I look on, I get a notification from Nikon Rumors, which is something I get on a regular basis. They're constantly like, lenses, mostly lenses and stuff like that. A couple times little tidbits of Nikon mirrorless possible, stuff like that. Nothing substantial. But on a Slovakian website, an official Nikon reseller, licensed Nikon reseller, a Slovakian Nikon website, has the Nikon D760 listed. And it's telling us, let's see, let me click off of it. So on the rumor here, Nikon D760 DSLR camera listed in a Slovakian online store. They're a authorized official Nikon dealer. They've got it listed on there. And let's go over the specs here real quick of what they show listed because it looks pretty exciting to me. 24 megapixel. I'm happy with that. I don't want 36. I like higher megapixel cameras. It's really cool. But let's be honest. Huawei's coming out with a new phone that shoots 40 megapixel pictures. It's a phone, Megapixels doesn't necessarily mean a better picture. It doesn't always seem. To me, 24 is about the perfect size picture. I'm shot with larger megapixel pictures. If it's strictly like for landscape photography where you got like a lot of high detail buildings, if you're going to be making billboards, stuff like that. But honestly, I've seen some billboards out there on the thing. There was one I saw on YouTube. They did a whole video about it. It was a billboard that was shot with an iPhone. That's not 40 megapixel. And it looks fine from the ground because the distance away, like your monitor, the farther away from the monitor you are, you don't need it to have as high a resolution because you're not right up on it. Same thing with a billboard. You're far enough away, you don't really need it to be as sharp because it looks sharp from a distance. So anyway, 24 megapixels, perfectly fine for photography. For me, I think it's the perfect size. 24 megapixel is the perfect size for me. It's the files are small enough, but they're big enough for nice size prints, stuff like that. Enough detail in them. The files are small enough to where they don't fill the buffer so fast. It's a perfect size. Okay, number next, 51 autofocus points. That's pretty decent. That should be, close to the edge, if not at the edge of the frame. So that's pretty decent. 8 frames per second. That's a little bit lower than I thought it would be, but I guess they're competing with they don't want to shoot faster than their D8 850, because 850 is what, 9 frames per second regular and then 10 frames per second with the grip or something. With the extended grip thing. I think that's what the D500 is too. I can't remember what the D500 is. I know the D500 is fast because I rented it and it was very fast. Shooting and filling, it didn't fill the buffer up. It shot a lot of frames per second. It's quick. Anyway, ISO 100 to 51,200. That looks pretty decent. 51,200. That's fine. That's probably the native. It probably goes higher than that because Nikon always puts some ridiculous high, like 2 million ISO in there, and it's just a grainy picture that looks terrible. But they always stick it in there. 3-inch LCD screen. It needs a 3-inch. It needs a 3-inch or bigger. I'm surprised it doesn't have a bigger, like 3.5-inch LCD screen with a flip screen. I'm sure it's a flip screen. It might be a touch screen. It's probably going to be a touchscreen. The D500 had a touchscreen on it. The 850 has a touchscreen. It needs to have the next touchscreen, which would be pretty good. SDHC, SDXC cards, memory cards. So it's got 2 slots, I'm sure. Okay, so it's got SD slash SDHC slash SDXC, which I don't see XQD. I'm surprised I don't see XQD. Like 1 slot SDHC or SDXC and 1 slot XQD, just like the D500 and stuff like that. Not that I need it, but it would be interesting to have XQD in there because the other cameras have it. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see, because they're doing it on the 850, and nobody's really complaining about the XQD. Although I would rather they had two of the same kind of cards. Like, make them both XQD if you're going to do it. But I guess they don't want to force people to get XQD cards, so they made one regular, one HC and one XQD. I don't know. Because, I mean, XQD cards are, look at the price, they're coming down. It's $135 for a 128 gig SDXC card, or XQD card. This 120, that's one of the fast 123. Yeah, I mean, they're coming down in price. They're much more robust. The shell is much, harder, more stiff. There's one with a little card reader. There's a little card reader and the card. So you get a card and a card reader. Either way. Anyway, HDSC, HDXC. 4K video. Duh. We know it's going to be 4K video. It has to be 4K video. We're pretty sure it's a DSLR. Nikon needs to come out with a new mirrorless camera. I don't think this is going to be it, because I think that's going to be a different model number completely. They wouldn't call the next camera in the line of cameras of the same name, but have it be a completely different camera, which a mirrorless would be a completely different than the D750. I've been very happy with DSLRs. I've shot with everything. I shoot with mirrorless. I bought a GH1 when it first came out. Got a GH2, GH3, GH4. I've shot with the GH5. I've shot with all of them. I've shot with Olympus a couple times. I haven't shot with the Sonys, but I've owned Sony cameras, and I know what the menu's like. The menu's exactly like the Sony camera I had there. I do want to shoot with the Sony. I have held the Sonys. I don't like the feel of the size. It's small. The grip on the Sonys, the one that I held, the grip was smaller than that on this. This is a little thicker than on the Sony that I shot with. Now, I don't know if it was that particular Sony. I forget which one it was, the one that I held, but it felt thinner than this one. And this is a vlogging camera. It's my G85, but it's a mirrorless vlogging camera. That's what I use it for, is for vlogging. Not necessarily has to be for vlogging, but that's what I use it for, is vlogging. And that's going to get me right on my other point. People complain that Nikon doesn't have very good autofocus during video, and they're right, it doesn't. But you know how much I use autofocus for video? Never. When I'm shooting a wedding or an event, I never use autofocus. I would never even use autofocus. And I've had cameras that shot decent autofocus. The GH5 shot okay autofocus, but I wouldn't use it. I use the manual focus. The only thing I use autofocus on is vlogging. So if you're going to get a vlogging camera, because I'm shooting like this with the vlogging camera, I'm holding it out, right? And I'm holding it away, and I want to flip, or I want to hold something up to it real quick and have it focus real fast, because I can't get to the camera to turn the lens. That's when I want it to work. But when I'm behind the camera and I'm working it, I can focus just as quick manually. I don't understand what the big deal is. If I'm shooting an event, now I get all these vloggers came out. We're freaking out over how bad the autofocus was on a GH5, and I thought, you use autofocus? Why? I don't. I've never used it. I always manually focus. It's not a big deal. I prefer manual lenses. You get those cinema lenses. There's no focusing on those things. Don't have autofocus. The cinema lenses that go on the DSLRs. There's no autofocus on those. They have a geared ring for focus, so that you can put it on a follow focus. They don't even have autofocus. So whatever. It doesn't bother me if it doesn't have autofocus like that. I just hope that in stills I need autofocus. Now stills are different. Stills are higher resolution at a distance, and they grab the picture. For that, I love the Sony eye thing, where it puts the focus thing right on the eye. That's pretty slick. That's pretty sweet. I think Nikon's going to come out with a mirrorless camera. I don't think the Nikon D750 is it, or D760 is it. I think the D760 is basically a D750 with 4K video and some other features on it, like the dual. I think instead of having dual SD cards, one's at SD, one's at SDXC. I think it'll have the features that you have on the D500. Hopefully, it has the features that are on the D500 because I actually like the feel of a full frame DSLR, and I like a full frame DSLR. I was gonna get the D500. I was actually gonna buy it. I've been considering buying it because I rented it. I really liked it. I used it for a job, and I really liked it. The pictures came out fantastic. I was a real big fan. The only thing I didn't like was the crop in 4K video. I could deal with it because I shoot 4K with the mirrorless Micro Four Thirds camera, so that crop's not that big of a deal on the crop sensor DSLR. So I didn't see what the big deal was, but I would rather have, if I had my druthers, if I had my choice, I would rather have a full frame DSLR with 4K video. That's what I would rather have. And that's what I'm hoping the D760 is, because then I can retire my cameras and grab a couple D760s and use those. That's what I would like to do. And that way I can use them for photography if I want to, or for video if I want to, instead of having to worry about juggling back and forth. I got my little vlogging camera, but then I've got those for photography and video, instead of having to swap around. Although the Sony, I think, does pretty daggum good photography and really good video at the same time. I'm pretty impressed by that Sony A7 III. Pretty cool camera. Comment below if you think this is if you are interested, if you're like excited to hear about the D760. Do you think it's coming out soon? Looks like it is to me. Looks like they're actually coming fast with it. We've got a thing from an official site, and they even put 4K video. I mean, they put the other stuff on there. I don't think it's a typo. There's other stuff on here that's not on the camera. That's the 4K video is the thing that really gives it away, because you could have said, well, okay, it's actually a D500, but that's not even. It's a 760. It's not even close. So I think they've got some information and they leaked it early, and we're going to be seeing a D760 pretty soon. What do you guys think? Interested in that, or do you think they should just ditch DSLRs and go mirrorless all the way? Or do you think there's still life in the mirrorless? I mean, in the DSLR. Do you think it still has some life left? I personally don't mind the mirror. I like a DSLR. I like the way they feel and the way they handle and their weight. The people complain, oh, they're heavy. Honestly, they're heavy, but when you put a decent lens on a mirrorless camera, the lens weighs more than the camera. The lens is heavier. The lens on this is heavier than the body, so it doesn't really matter. If I put a 200 mil on here, the front of this thing is heavy. If you put a 200 mil on a mirrorless, the front of the thing is heavy. The lens is heavy. The body itself really is not that heavy on a DSLR. It's the lenses, especially on a full frame. You've got these big lenses because it's a full frame camera. I saw the Sony A7 II. Or A7 III, and somebody was on YouTube doing a review of it or something. They had a 200 millimeter. It was this big and this big around, and it looked like the lens was way bigger than the body. And I thought, and they were holding it, and it was heavy. And they said, "This is a heavy kit." And I thought, yeah, you put a big lens on it, and it's heavy. You put a big lens on a DSLR, and it's heavy. So I don't get it. I don't see what the big thing is about the weight reduction. It doesn't bother me, the weight. It actually makes it more stable. Oh, that was the other thing. I don't see in-body stabilization on this list. I was hoping that they would come out with in-body stabilization. They might actually have to wait until they do mirrorless to get that, because they're probably just going to put the same sensor in, put their sensor from the D850 in here, which doesn't have IBIS. I really wish they'd come out with IBIS. That's the other thing, is the like the Panasonic GH5, the IBIS on that thing is ridiculous. It is so good that it looks like you're on a tripod when you're hand holding it. It's so good. It's the best IBIS I've ever seen on a camera. When they have it in the camera and the lens, it's better than the G85. G85 I thought was like the same. It's not the same. It's close. G85 actually pretty close. It stays pretty stable. GH5 is on a whole nother ballpark. That thing, you hold that lens, you hold that camera, you can literally do most of your shots without even using a monopod or a tripod or anything. You could actually handhold and shoot an entire ceremony wedding, and you wouldn't be able to tell. It looks like it's on a tripod. It's that smooth. It's literally that smooth. And you can do moves with it that make it look like that. Anyway, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know, what do you think? You know, is a DSLR dead, or is mirrorless, you know, taking over, or is there life left in DSLR? I think there's life left. I think we still have plenty of room for improvement on DSLRs, and I know I would still buy one. I still love them. So, holler at you guys. Take it easy.